What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Spill the Beans. Today I'm sitting down with my buddy Mario Dattilo. He's been in my mastermind for a little over a year, and he focuses on mobile home parks. He owns over 800 pads across multiple states, and he's an expert on this stuff. I actually asked him to come in. We're launching something called Legacy Wealth Academy, kind of some master classes on different asset classes, and he's going to be coming in and teaching one of the courses on mobile home investing. So we're going to dive into that with him. I want to talk to him about how he's finding these deals, how he's raising the capital on these deals, how he's operating the deals, and the different nuances in the mobile home investing asset class compared to a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the multifamily side. So let's go check it out. Mr. Mario, cheers, buddy. Welcome.
Yeah, cheers.
How you doing, man?
Good to hang out.
Welcome to Spill the Beans. Welcome to Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah, I love it.
Flight in was okay?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Is this your first time here?
No, I've been here before.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I love Charleston.
Yeah, good town. And you're in town, actually filming for a big announcement. Actually, we haven't told anybody about this yet, but we're coming out with something called Legacy Wealth Academy. And you'll see it on social media and stuff, but essentially it's a library of master classes for all sorts of different asset classes. Mobile home parks, self-storage facilities, multifamily real estate, retail, office, mixed use. I mean, you name it, we're gonna have a master class on it, including things like cryptocurrency, investing in NFTs, using your Roth IRA, self-directed investments. All sorts of asset protection. I mean, you name it, we're going to have, if it's about wealth building at all, or personal finance, or real estate, we're going to be talking about it. We're going to have a master class on it. So Mario's actually coming in. He's going to be doing the course on mobile home parks, one of the courses, yeah. And so, yeah, man, I'm excited. So you're in town. You're going to be filming with Cam, I think, tomorrow? Is that
Yep. Sunday, actually.
Sunday,
yep. We're going to be filming Sunday.
That's going to be awesome. And you know what I'm excited about? Like, we've obviously known each other for about a little over a year now. You've been part of the mastermind. Yep. But I'm interested to hear, like, how'd you get started in buying mobile homes? Like, tell me a little bit about your journey earlier on, and then I want to dive deep into really some of the technical elements of investing in mobile homes.
Yeah. So got started, actually, I never went to college. I was in high school, started a network marketing business in high school, never went to college, and then after that, started a real estate company and a mortgage company with a partner. It was a brokerage. And right around 2008, things started to get pretty hectic, and obviously the market was falling out, and I was helping investors buy homes. And so I basically just went to my dad, who had construction background. Mm-hmm. He was a custom home builder and a lot of commercial construction background, said, look, we should really be buying these. I'm helping clients make a ton of money here. Why don't you handle the construction? I'll handle the acquisition and disposition. Let's team up. So ended up shutting down the brokerage with that other partner, went into business with my dad, and started buying single family homes.
How'd that go?
It went great all over Minnesota and then eventually Florida.
How'd it go working with your dad?
Very well, because my dad and I are opposites. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy, negotiating, sourcing deals. He's really construction. Mm-hmm. And that's the only aspect of the business that he's ever, been involved in for the most part. Some high-level planning things, but
sure.
Yeah, we complement each other really well.
That's good, man. Yeah. So you guys started buying houses. Were they buy and hold, or they buy and flip?
We never held single-family homes for long-term rentals.
Got it.
Yep, we bought everything, rehabbed it, and then sold it, and then around 2013, 2014, started looking at apartments because we wanted to get out of the single family world. For us, it was kind of an opportunistic investment. The timing was right when we started buying them. There was blood in the streets everywhere. And then, 2013, a lot of that started to dry up. And we were like, hey, let's maybe pivot into long-term hold. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to go more commercial, look at apartments. And then somebody brought me, a good friend of mine who was a commercial banker, brought me a deal and said, look, I know you're looking for apartments, but this other banker friend of mine has a non-performing loan on a mobile home park close to you. Would you look at it? I don't know anything about mobile home parks, but sure, I'll take a look. And yeah, I mean, it definitely had some nuances to it, but it generally operated similar to an apartment building.
So talk to me, what are the differences? What are those nuances that you really need to pay attention to? If you're coming from single family or multifamily, looking to buy a mobile home park, like, dude, how do people get their legs taken out? Like, how do they mess up?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. So I would say one of the main ways that people make mistakes buying mobile home parks is they value it wrong, okay? And there's two different models. And I won't say one model's right or wrong, but if you're doing, so you've got two different models. Okay, you've got a rental model where the community owns the homes, and they rent out the home and the lot. And then you've got the lot rent model. And the lot rent model means that a tenant owns the home and they pay lot rent to have it there. Now, we own and operate lot rent communities, but if you're valuing the cash flow from the rental income of the home and the lot, you're probably overpaying for it. So typically...
Because you're taking rental revenue from a depreciating asset that's not real property.
Yeah.
It's like a car, and you're valuing a car based on a cap rate, which is not how you should ever value that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So for us, whenever we get homes in inventory, or if they're rental homes that come with the community, we then value it as shell value because we're going to sell that home. And we just look at the lot rent. So someone can get very hurt if they're valuing twice the income, because that's usually what it is.
All right, so let's go through an example. All right, so you got a 10-unit mobile home park, and the lot rent is $300 a month. So each of those is $300 a month. You're bringing in $3,000 a month just by owning the lots. And what typically expenses do you pay on that? Obviously property taxes. Is there insurance, like liability insurance probably?
Yeah, so you're going to have insurance, you're going to have taxes, you're going to have administrative costs, you're going to have...
do you pay for water, or you bill that back?
Well, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll buy communities that the community is paying for water, sewer, and trash, and then we go and bill it back to the residents.
Gotcha.
So that's a big value.
So it's a RUBS kind of thing.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, so then... and then obviously you got management. Okay, all right. So $300 a month lot rent, and then let's call it $500 a month for the actual mobile home itself.
Yeah.
Okay. $500 a month. You're thinking, but you got maintenance, you got management, and all that kind of stuff on that. In an apartment, that extra $500 a month, $6,000 a year. Let's say you keep 60% of that money. Pull out my calculator real quick.
Yeah, sure.
6,000 times 0.6 is 3,600, right? And if you divide it by a 6 cap, you're going to spend $60,000 buying that mobile home. When the reality is that mobile home is probably worth $10,000.
Right, and that's where you can get hurt. Is when you're applying a cap rate to the rent that's lined up, or that's coming in from the home rent.
How does depreciation work? Because obviously you can't depreciate land, unimproved land. This is slightly improved, but there's obviously not too much. I wouldn't think there's too much depreciation on it. If you buy the mobile home and people who own the mobile home also, can they depreciate that all in year one?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know, because we don't typically do that.
You don't own those, right?
Right, we don't own those, but they are, I would think that they would be depreciable just because they are structures or they're assets to the community. But
and because they're a certain weight, typically with the tax code right now, you can write off 100% of that vehicle in year one.
It'd be like a vehicle.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. So what would you do? You would essentially do a contract for the land, and then you'd have a bill of sale that would come with all the mobile homes?
We'd get a bill of sale, and then we'd actually have the titles transferred. And what's interesting is that the titles are like car titles. They're actually registered with the DMV. So we do a bill of sale and then title transfer at closing, and then from there we would sell those homes off. But yeah, we would depreciate in our communities.
You sell or finance it, or you just try to cash out?
We don't. We try, just because of Dodd-Frank and some of the laws that are in place, we try and just sell them for as much as we possibly can, cash, get good people that don't have mortgages on their homes to pay us the lot rent. Yep. But we do depreciate the infrastructure, so the water, the sewer, the roads, lights, if there's a clubhouse, pool, office, things like that, that all gets depreciated as well.
Why? I've heard that there's a nationwide moratorium on mobile home parks. And so cities won't rezone anything as a mobile home park. Is that true?
Kind of. A lot of cities and a lot of cities do not allow it because two reasons. Number one, it's ugly. Nobody wants it in their backyard. Number two, it doesn't generate very much tax income. So you've got kind of multiple reasons. You got financial reasons and
you got all these kids who live in a mobile home park. None of them are paying taxes, but they're all utilizing the schools.
Totally.
Right. They're utilizing the public services, the streets, the roads, all this other stuff.
Because the value of that is basically land. Yep. So that, versus if you get an apartment building or an office building, there's a lot more tax revenue coming in.
Right. So there's some communities though that are really nice.
Oh yeah.
that have clubhouses, that have
call them
pools.
amenity communities or lifestyle choice communities.
Yeah, and like there's a lot that are kind of like retirement type facility, and you wouldn't even know that it's a mobile home because they have decks built around them and they have skirts built around them, and like you barely even know that it's a manufactured home or like essentially a mobile home. So like I don't know what some of those are nice looking, right?
Sure.
There's some of those communities that are nice looking. Have you ever seen a community, or have you ever tried to rezone land as mobile home?
We prefer to buy existing, underperforming, and just value add and basically stabilize the community. But
I don't know anybody who has, so I was just wondering if you.
There's a few people out there doing it right now. The numbers are hard to make work. But yeah, so like if you look at Florida, Arizona, California, parts of Texas, maybe even Charleston, there's probably some amenity type communities. The rest of the country is just affordable housing, right? What we would think of as a mobile home park. But you're 100% right. We own an amenity community in Edgewater, Florida. It's got a pool. I mean, it's not a 5-star community, but it's definitely a nice one. Mostly Canadians and people that are there seasonally, or it's a nice community.
What kind of lot rent do you get on something like that?
I think we're at 600 right now.
Dang, dude.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you pay for all and that includes kind of like HOA.
So that's going to cover pretty much the tax on the real estate, insurance, and that's it. I mean, there's not anything else. They pay their water, sewer, and trash. They're billed back on meters, and they have.
What about the amenities? You pay for those, right?
Yeah, we pay for the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it.
Interesting, dude.
Yeah, so it's the whole benefit of owning a mobile home park is you have minimal expenses. What we like about mobile home parks is our expense ratio is lower.
Oh, so, for sure. What would you say it is?
Between 35 and 42%.
Okay.
Yep. So we kind of prefer no amenities if we can have that because it's lower expense.
Tell me about scale. Is there scale like you see in multifamily once you get over 50, 70, 100 units? It's a lot easier to have on-site maintenance, on-site management, all that kind of stuff. I would think if you're only doing lot rent, well, first, you don't really need on-site maintenance because you don't own any of the...
Correct. We don't have on-site maintenance at most of our communities. They're just contracted labor. If we have a project that has to get done, we just contract somebody.
So like, what about on-site management? Do you even need that?
Most of our community managers are either they live on site or they live nearby. They're part-time. Majority of them are part-time, and some of them have full-time jobs that they just do this on the side. It kind of depends.
I mean, what the hell do they do even? Like when people move out, they don't take their mobile home with them, right?
No, it's very rare. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it really costs thousands of dollars to move it, and typically they just sell the home to the next buyer, which is what we love about this business because all we're doing, look at it this way, we're like a for-profit homeowners association and a builder developer.
Yeah.
Because for our homes,
I like that.
For our homes, we don't own them. Okay, or the homes, we don't own them. They just basically pay us lot rent, which would be like an HOA do, right? If they don't take care of their home, if they don't pay their dues, we can evict, take the home, essentially foreclose. It's more like a repo. But
I was going to say, what are the nuances? What are the differences in that? Do they get evicted the same way in multifamily?
They do. Yeah, they get evicted just like multifamily, but then you file for abandoned title, which gives us a new title in our name for the home. So what's great is then we can fix up that home and we can sell it and make money typically.
If they don't pay you lot rent and they own the mobile home, you can evict them. They leave. Typically, they don't take this with them. How long does it take in order to get or how long does it take in order to get title of a abandoned vehicle?
So it's going to take anywhere from 30 to 90 days, depending on the state and the counties. I mean, sometimes DMV to DMV, it depends.
Do you file that the day after they leave?
Yeah. So once we've gotten possession from the writ, then we go file for abandonment, and it takes some time because they've got to mail something out, and there's a process to it. But what's great is we get the home. We can fix it up, which means we can then improve it, make it look nice, so then the next buyer that comes in has a nice, clean, beautiful home, which improves the community at the same time. So we're getting a better tenant, and we're fixing up the community as we, unfortunately, have to evict sometimes.
So how does somebody come in and afford to buy that mobile home? Are they paying cash? If you're not seller financing, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure Trump got rid of Dodd-Frank. So you should look at that, because I think you can seller finance. I don't know how many.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You could at least do an installment contract or something, maybe.
Sure.
I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, look into that. The other thing is, how are there banks? How are they getting financing?
So most of on homes that are sub 10,000, they're typically cash sales. Anything over that, we have retail financing through a couple different commercial lenders that actually finance them and cash us out. We've got so anything really over 10,000 on a loan amount is getting financed retail and cashing us out that way. And they've got a mortgage they pay to the mortgage company, and then they pay us our lot rent directly.
It's wild, man.
Yeah, it's kind of a really unique.
What if there's a mortgage on it and there's an abandoned title? What happens? Do you have to assume the loan?
So
or do you have to pay it back?
So if they have a mortgage and we evict, then we can take that home, and then we would then contact the mortgage company and either assume or pay off that loan. It's still subject to their loan. They could repo that home and pull it out.
Have you ever seen that happen?
No.
Dude,
no, because
I couldn't imagine.
No, it would suck. We would jump in and buy that to keep it in the community.
It'd be horrible for you, and it'd be horrible to be on that side of the coin too.
The worst thing for us is a home to go out.
Yeah.
That's $60,000, $70,000 in value on the community because that cash flow that would come in from that. So we'll do whatever we need to do to get it back, to keep it in our community. Yeah.
So have you ever bought a mobile home park that had several vacant lots on it?
Yeah.
And then what do? You go and find used mobile homes and get them shipped over to you, and then fix them all up, and then turn around and sell them, or?
So we try and buy used homes whenever we can, but just like the car market, they're very expensive, and they've went up in price to where a lot of times it just doesn't make financial sense. We're dealers, we're manufactured home dealers, so we actually buy them from the manufacturers direct. We can order them brand new, however we want them, and then have them shipped in. So we can fill up communities. Right now, you can get them in the 50s.
For like 3-bed, 2-bath?
Yeah. Yep, and obviously every manufacturer
is that single wide,
different.
Double wide?
Singles. Yeah, we typically buy singles because to transport and set up, they're double expensive if you do a double wide. But they went up in price quite a bit. When we first started, we could buy them for high 30s. Now they're mid 50s, starting point. Which, when you think about it, it's still really affordable payment. They're under $1,000 a month with lot rent and mortgage typically.
That's wild.
And they own it.
It's very reasonable, and it's a brand new home kind of thing.
Warranties and everything.
How long do you see them lasting?
The homes are pretty resilient. We've got homes in our communities that are pre-HUD, which means they're pre-1976 or 1978, and they're metal boxes.
Yeah.
And so people think that mobile homes are junky or they can't, they don't withstand storms
or anything
like
that. The walls aren't
drywall,
solid. Right? So it's kind of like flimsy, panel walls.
Yeah, you just pop them out, put them back, put new ones in. They're basically a metal box with no walls holding anything up on the inside. So you can gut them completely and build it out again. And as long as your roof is in good condition, you haven't had massive mold issues, you can pretty much redo any home.
Interesting. What does the financing look like? I assume you can raise money, you can syndicate the same way that we do on the apartment side. What does it look like from the banking perspective? What kind of LTVs, what kind of loan terms does that look like when you go and talk to them?
So debt is pretty attractive. We've got the agency loans just like apartments, and they have got the duty to serve. So their focus is financing affordable housing. So the terms are going to typically be for institutional lenders like agencies, CMBS, and life companies, you're going to have typically a 30-year amortization. You're going to have 10-year, or on the agency side, you can go full AM.
So it's all the same lenders
it's very
that you have
similar, yes.
with other commercial asset classes.
It's the exact same lenders. And then if you get sub $1 million on the loan amount, or you've got something that's a little grittier that needs improvement, you're typically working with a local bank to fix it up, get it stabilized, and then we refi into long-term non-recourse
So it's the exact same thing that we do on the multifamily side.
Yeah, our LTVs might be slightly lower. Like, what are apartments, 80?
Depends on the market that you're in. Like if you're in a primary market, you can get 80% as long as the debt service coverage ratio is there.
Yeah.
And so if the cash flow is there, then you can get up to 80%. In secondary and tertiary kind of markets, you're probably going to drop into the 70-75% LTV range.
That's more what mobile home parks are. Yeah, I think on the agency side you can get up to 80, but it's typically going to be in that 70 to 75. So very similar.
Do you syndicate, or do you guys use your own money?
We syndicate. We've got 5 equity partners that have just been investing with us for a long time. We've got one family office, and then the others are just very high net worth guys. And so they're Reg D 506C offerings, but we're not actively out sourcing capital because they're pretty scalable.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, it's great.
Can you force appreciation the way that we do in multifamily?
Yeah,
kind of the same thing. You go in. Are these lot rents typically in 12-month lease terms?
Yes. So we'll sign a 12-month lease, and in some states, it makes more sense to do a month-to-month just from an eviction standpoint after that, but they'll typically start out on a 12-month and then expire into month-to-month.
Well, the
which
reason
is different than apartments.
Yeah, well, with apartments, when you go month to month, the bank doesn't like to see that because it looks like it's very transient.
Yeah.
They want to see long-term leases in place because now it's solid tenant base.
Almost every single loan that we've gotten, they always ask that question. They'll say, well, why haven't you renewed these into another 12-month? And in certain states we do, and in certain states we don't. And then we just show them, hey, it actually doesn't make sense for us to do that, and they always drop it. But yes, that would be very typical in the apartment world. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you can add value in a bunch of different ways. I mean, I think the obvious way is raising rent, reducing expenses, but then you've got the bill back. We do that in almost every community. If it's not already billed back, we're installing Metron meters, which is kind of cool, high-tech meters. We bill back the trash. A couple of communities, we actually bill back the landscaping, so the lawn maintenance and things like that. And so in that way, it is kind of like a homeowners association. But yeah, so we bill all that back, and
do you guys always take care of all the landscaping?
We don't typically. There's couple of communities, and
I would think you'd want to, because then it gets taken care of.
The communities that we do it in, the 2 communities that we do bill back, that's why. Because we could just never get the whole community to come together and cut their lawn. Most of the other ones, they do, but when they don't, you kind of just got to force it. Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's why we do that. But a couple other ways that we add value in the communities is we'll add some light amenities, affordable amenities. We're not going to go put in pools and clubhouses, but we'll put in swing sets or just light amenities, which really just tries to build up more community. There's one thing that's unique about mobile home parks, and that's that it's one of the last places where you can see true community build up, because a lot of these people have lived in these communities for literally multiple generations. Like since the 60s, their parents had a home there, and then somebody took it over, and so they really know each other well, and they look out for each other, and so it's pretty cool. So we try and find affordable ways to create community for them.
Oh, that's really cool, man. Well,
bringing in homes would be the other big way of adding value. I forgot that one. Yeah.
So if it's zoned for a certain number of pads, though, right? So
Correct.
once you hit that, even if you had additional land,
Correct.
typically the city's not going to be like, just throw some more on
You'd
there.
have to get a variance, or you'd have to go through a zoning process to get an expansion, and that's fairly hard because of what we talked about. But so you're typically licensed by the county zoning, and then also the health department in most states will. I think they do it for apartments in some states too, but they basically tell you how many lots you can have there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a density ratio that,
Correct.
depending on how much development they want or don't want in their community.
Well, what's happened too on the mobile home park side is these parks at one time were kind of rural. They were out in the middle of nowhere, and then because of the sprawl of the city, they've gotten built up around. And so that's where, it's not, they're legal non-conforming, so you can't build it there, but you can keep it until it's taken down. So they typically don't allow you to expand for that reason, because they want something nicer there.
Yeah. So is that one of your long-term plans? Is it by the mobile home park, eventually it gets fully filled in around it, and now all of a sudden you own this land, you can move all the campers out, right? And then all of a sudden you can build multifamily or build something else right there?
Yeah. So
is that kind of like a long-term goal?
We're 10 plus year hold. Like, we're definitely long-term hold. Whether we package them all up and sell them off to an institutional group, or we start redeveloping some of them, not quite sure. We haven't looked that far in the future, but we sold one community to a family office that I think that's their plan. It was a great location. They bought it for the cash flow, but I think in the next probably 30 or, family office, they think generational. So that's their play, is they're going to exit at some point by probably redeveloping that once it's, once they're ready. But it's a great covered land play.
No,
There's
totally.
some communities that will probably make a lot more sense to do that with than others. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm actually surprised. I would think your expense ratio would actually be lower than 35 to 42%. Because you're not. It's almost like I kind of see it as like the townhouses that I own, right? The townhouses that I own are all individually metered. They pay HOA dues, that kind of stuff. We cut all the grass. So there's some HOA type stuff that we have to take on. But yeah, those are in like that 30% range, I think, on the expense ratio side.
Our lowest
but
expense
your property
ratio,
taxes, which should be way lower, I would think, aren't they?
No, not necessarily.
Really?
Property taxes can get pretty hefty. Insurance can
On
also
a $1 million
be
property, how much are you paying in property taxes?
well, Florida, it's going to be probably around 1 to 1.5%.
15,000.
Yeah. So I mean, keep in mind.
So it's still that, even though there's not like a dwelling on there, huh?
Yep.
Interesting.
Because what they're doing is they're taking the lot rent, they're using a cap rate to value the other communities for the county tax appraiser. So.
And speaking of cap rates, I remember buy any mobile home park in the country for 10 to 14% cap rates not too long ago.
Yeah.
Now they're getting pretty competitive with apartments, right?
They're pricey. They're very pricey. I mean, even when I bought my first community in 2015, people were still kind of like, mobile home park, what the heck is that? They knew what they were, but they didn't really understand them, and nobody in real estate was really looking at them. And you could buy them for very attractive cap rates. Now it's like, it's not quite as low as apartments, but depending on the market, I'm seeing stuff for 4 caps on,
holy smokes,
pro forma, and I'm going, why would anybody do that? If I'm paying a 4 cap, I'm buying an apartment building. I'm buying a nice apartment building, not a mobile home park. So it's something that's kind of went across the board on all real estate types. People are just chasing assets, and because apartments, storage, and other kind of similar property types have been in high demand for a long time. They're kind of looking for these weird niche property types and places to put their capital. And so mobile home parks, are kind of the ugly red-headed stepchild that they're falling into because, they're just looking for a yield.
Are you thinking, what's the hurdle there? Is there a hurdle? Because, there is so much money on the sidelines. It's not that hard to sell somebody on investing in, you have 6 major investors. When you're talking to other people about it, are they like, oh man, I don't want to own a mobile home park? Or
I think it's gotten sexy. To be honest, I think there's been...
Dude, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
If I was going to get into another asset class, I think that's the one that I would get into.
It's super niche. It's unique. I like the fact that, once it's stabilized and you don't own the homes, it's pretty boring. They get pretty boring, which is great. But I think people have gotten excited about them because there's been a lot of publicity about them. Before maybe 2020, 2019, people just were like, oh, that thing's ugly. But now people are very attracted to it. We get a lot of people coming to us asking if they can invest in the deals. And
Yeah.
I would invest.
Call me next time.
Yeah.
I want to be your 6th investor or 7th, or whatever it is. The other thing is, what about RV parks? Tell me about are there differences? Are they pretty much zoned exactly the same? RV parks is just really people traveling. It's more like almost short-term rental type side of mobile home park owning.
Sure, yeah, and I got to start out by saying I don't own any RV parks, so for me to get into the nitty-gritties on it, I probably wouldn't be qualified, but the difference is kind of like a motel and an apartment building. They are like motels that people drive their units into and out of, and so they are much more transient. They're kind of a hospitality business. There are some RV parks that have more long-term stay type people, which look a lot more like a mobile home park, but the zoning is RV versus mobile home. And in some municipalities, they'll allow you to put RVs on mobile home and mobile home on RV lots, but then in a lot of them they don't. So that's something that you have to actually look into. One thing that a lot of people are doing because it is hard to get mobile homes. So
what's the difference then? Is because a mobile home does not have an engine? And an RV does? Is that the major difference?
No, not all RVs do. A lot of RVs are pull behind.
Like fifth wheeler kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So the difference is, the main difference, the legal difference is, one is a legal home. It's a residence, and it's certified by HUD to be that. Where RVs, even park models that look like mobile homes, aren't HUD rated necessarily, which means they're not built to certain code. But typically, yeah, your RVs are going to be sitting on an axle and wheels, and they're going to be movable at any time. Where the mobile homes are really not that mobile. They're mobile to get in and out, but after that, they pretty much, they don't move at all.
Yeah.
So I would say the difference in an RV park versus a mobile home park too, which RV parks have gotten hot in the last 12 months. It's funny because nobody's talking about RV parks, and then I think people struggled to find mobile home parks, and they're like, RV parks, that looks just like it. Let's go buy those.
And it's typically in kind of cooler locations, right? Like you drive down, A1A down in Florida, dude, there's a bunch of RV parks on the ocean.
They are, yeah.
And I'm like, damn, this is primo real estate. And there's people traveling around the country, hanging out, park there for a week, hang out on the ocean. They have these beautiful views, and they keep on cruising down,
Yeah, and you also see a lot more amenities in those, and it's a lifestyle thing. It's not an affordability thing, so they're very well accepted. And there's more development of RV parks going on than there are mobile home parks.
That was my next question. Is that being allowed for development?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, because it's for them. It's you don't have that. Not next. What do they say? Not my backyard. You don't have that. You've got $500,000 RVs pulling in, and that's good business. It's bringing wealthy people to their neighborhood. So they're very acceptable. Yeah, and they're much easier to get the zoning for.
Interesting. Have you guys looked into doing any of that?
I've looked at quite a few RV parks. We've never pulled the trigger on one. They're definitely more management intense, and your expense ratio is higher, and you have a lot more risk.
I mean, I see it as a short-term rental version of multifamily, right? So it's like it's going to be much more intensive. They're going to have higher expectations,
right?
Because they're paying more, but you're making more money. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I think there's definitely some attractive plays because the real estate is typically very sexy, great locations. So there's definitely a great long-term play on some of that stuff. Right. I don't know anything about it, dude. I'm just thinking from a high level.
It's kind of like if as long as you're comfortable with the transient nature and the ability for everybody to move out in one day just because they need to or they want to, then it's a really nice property type. I mean, it functions similar to the mobile home parks, but for us, it's kind of been a risk factor of, on a mobile home park, I know what the income is going to look like. Yeah. It's very easy to model out. Where on the RV park, you're really just looking at historicals like you would a hotel and projecting forward, hoping that it's going to perform at the same or better.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. Have you ever looked at doing short-term rentals in mobile home parks?
Have not.
Because I'll give you an example. On some of the apartments that I own, some are in pretty cool locations. I got one. South of Charleston, that it's close to a hospital. It's in a cool kind of close to the historic district. Yeah. And it's a pretty unique property where the limitation is you can't put short-term rental in it right now because we're building it. Sure. It's a 60-unit apartment building. We're developing it right now. And in order to refinance, they don't count short-term rental revenue as revenue for the apartment building. So the value would come down. They'd be like, no, they're not even going to give you a value on it. So you need to put long-term leases in place, and then once it's refinanced, then you can take a couple of them, furnish it, and make, instead of making $1,500 a month, you can make $3,500 a month. So it's more of a cash flow play than it is a valuation play. Yeah. Unless you can get corporate rentals in there, and they sign at least, I think it's a 5-year lease term, or whatever. Typically it's around 5 years.
Value that.
Then they'll give you the higher value on it. They might not give you the loan to value because if it's not the entire length of the loan term also, then there's some risk there, right?
Sure.
You got a 10-year loan term, but only a 5-year
corporate
lease.
They're worried the income's going to cut off.
Yeah, what happens?
Through.
So they might not give you the LTV, but who knows?
Yeah, I love that in the apartment space.
So you can do that with apartments and juice the rents. Sure. Is that something that you guys can do?
We could if we wanted to own the homes.
Yeah.
One other aspect, like we have a community that's our nicest community that actually has a motel at the front of it. And we've switched over from being a typical motel to using Airbnb. And so we do it there, and it's got a pool and other things. So we have dabbled, but because we don't own the homes, we don't have anything to rent necessarily.
Well, there's companies that go around, they just do the rental arbitrage play.
Yeah.
So they'll come in and say, hey, we'll take 10 of your units at this apartment complex. They'll furnish it. They'll guarantee us instead of $1,000 a month in rent, they'll pay $1,250. So we're getting a premium. So we like it. It's a long-term lease, so the bank likes it.
Right.
And then they can go make an arbitrage on it, and we don't have to manage it or anything. And we have 100% occupancy. We haven't signed a lease with anybody doing that.
Sure.
But we've had many people who have approached us with that exact same model. I'm wondering if they can do that. The question becomes:
Absolutely.
Is it it's all about location, though. It's about
it's got to be an area that people want to vacation to. Or
are people
stay in
Airbnb?
For
in
us,
mobile home parks? I don't know.
Like one aspect that kind of sounds similar to what you're talking about. We get a lot of investors, mobile home investors, not park investors, but mobile home investors that come to us and say, "Hey, can we buy these 3 homes and we're going to rent them out?" And our answer is always no. And the reason why is because once they start to own the homes, it's different than just rental arbitrage like what you're talking about. Once they own it, if we jack up the rents and they don't want to comply and they've got 10 homes that they own in the park, it's pretty painful. So that's actually a major red flag to a lender. When you start to see one owner owning a bunch of homes in the community, that's a red flag, and they start to dive into that because they're concerned about one tenant owning homes and controlling the community's income if they don't like what's going on. So, but on a rental basis, rental arbitrage, that's not a bad idea. We would just have to own the homes.
Yeah, I just, Dusty Keefe from the Mastermind, dude. He's one of the few people who actually own the homes that I know of, but his plays are usually like flipping them or seller financing them or doing some lease option type of a thing.
He's got a long-term exit on the home versus short-term.
Where he doesn't have to manage the home or doesn't have to maintain the home. And he buys, dude, it's like stupid cheap. He gets them for $1,500 or $2,000 or $7,000, and then turns around and sells it for $25,000 kind of a thing. And the down payment
focused.
Yeah,
very payment focused.
And he's got note after note after note after note. And I was like, dude, you're just creating these notes all over the place. It's so. And then they pop once in a while, or they don't, and then he just does it again.
Sure.
But he got the down payment and everything else. There's a lot of like very unique ways to make a lot of money, I think, in that space.
Yeah, especially if you're taking an older home and you're renovating it, and it needs to be renovated past what you can get for cash on it. It's not a bad play to carry the financing or do a rent to own or something like that. There's a lot of different strategies on that. And there are people who, that's why I said in the beginning, it's not a right or a wrong in the lot rent versus the rental model. It's just different. Lenders definitely are more attracted to the lot rent model. It's very difficult to get them financed on the rental model, but it's not a bad model. It's just different.
Will they finance the purchase of the mobile homes also?
There's one institutional lender I'm aware of that'll finance some of the homes. Yep. Otherwise,
as long as they're valued based on a bill of sale, though, right?
Correct. Yeah, they don't want the homes financed in because that's chattel versus real estate. It's two different property types or collateral types, and so they typically do not. Even like when we go, especially on the institutional side, banks, if they don't really understand it, you might be able to get somebody to do it because they just don't understand the difference of the models. But once you go institutional with those loans, they actually will make us form. If you don't already have a dealership, they'll make you form a separate entity to move all your titles of homes into that because they don't want the entity that owns the real estate to own the homes. They're that, careful about it. And there's a certain percentage threshold that they'll accept as park-owned homes in a community.
Love it, dude. So how many are you at right now?
We're at 800.
800?
800 lots currently.
Lots. Okay. How many different properties?
10.
10 different properties. How many different states?
Florida, Georgia, Minnesota.
3 different states.
Yep.
What does the next 12 months look like? Or I guess what's like the short-term goal? 12 to 36 months.
Sure.
Where do you want to be?
I mean, we want to pick up as many communities as we possibly can in this next year. I've got 2 acquisition managers. I'm looking for a third one. I also own a brokerage. So those guys broker deals that we don't buy, and then everything that we want to buy, we pick up and buy ourselves. So I mean, for them, they've both, the 2 that I've got now, their goal is to bring in at least 6, so that could be 12 acquisitions for the year.
Specifically, are they looking only for mobile homes, or are they brokering single-family stuff too?
Mobile home parks only. Yep.
Really?
We own a little bit of self-storage too, so I mean, we'd pick up some of that if we came across it, but they're calling, mailing, reaching out to owners of mobile home parks only.
What would it look like on a deal that you would pass on? Why would you not take down a deal. Obviously, price.
Yep. We just actually sold 2 communities in the Panhandle in Pensacola last week to a guy the reason we didn't buy those is because they were all rental homes. They were all rentals, and they were too small of a park. For us, 50 plus, and I think you asked this earlier on scale. Really, 50 plus occupied lots is where we start to get interested, because then we can afford a quality manager on site. We've got some scale there, and for travel costs, because we're not just buying in our backyard. We're looking everywhere. So those were just too small of communities, and they were rental communities. Sometimes the utilities are a little quirky. I mean, with apartments, it's pretty straightforward. On mobile home parks, you get into private utilities a lot, like well for water. Like I'm under contract on 2 in Pennsylvania, but 1 in Pennsylvania that's got a well. So now you're dealing with the EPA and other things, and then on the sewers where it gets really tricky. You've got the city sewer, but then you've also got septics, wastewater treatment plants, and lagoons. I can mess with the septics and the wastewater treatment plants if I need to. The lagoons, that's a cesspool basically. It's like,
Dude,
so it just flows into a pond.
That's all it is, right?
I mean, it's a little bit more technical, but it's poop.
Does it get
flows
treated?
into a pond, and then they put bugs in there that
eat it all.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So we would probably pass on that if we couldn't convert it.
I have an apartment building that's on well up in Cleveland. It's actually it's outside of Cleveland, a city called Canton. But that apartment's on well, but it's on city sewer. And then I really got into like septic and well when I bought the mountain house last year, and then I bought the island, and then this other house on the mainland next to the island. Got into all this stuff.
Septic on the island or wastewater treatment?
Yeah, septic on the island, and then it's I have septic up in the mountain house too.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. Yeah, you learn a lot.
It is, man. It's a different
poopy
world.
business.
It is.
Yeah, we're so that, I mean, something like a lagoon that we couldn't connect into city utilities, we'd probably pass on that because it's just not an expertise that we have. But typically, it's size, geographic location. We look at income. We look at a lot of the metrics that I'm sure you look at for apartments. So if it's in a neighborhood that isn't going to have that median household income or the median home value, where there's going to be a real demand for home ownership in our community, we're not going to do that.
What do the qualifications for tenants look like?
For the tenants, it's going to be pretty standard. I mean, typically what you're looking at is 3 times rent,
total
credit.
rent?
Total rent.
Yeah. Meaning
yes,
they got to be able to afford the house,
totally.
and they got to be able to
and
the utilities and the lot, obviously too.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. And then for what was I saying? Oh yeah, so income, they got to have provable income from a job. They've got to have the down payment, provable down payment, where it came from. So it's very similar to a home buyer.
What about eviction history?
Totally, yeah. If they've been evicted, we typically won't look at them.
It shows eviction history on the record. Does it also show abandonment? Does that show up on their credit at all?
No, it doesn't. So it's going to show up just like if you do. We do the same background checks you would for an apartment, but we can see their credit, we can see their eviction, judgments, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean,
criminal history.
Criminal history is big. Yeah, I mean, obviously with fair housing, there's lines that have to be drawn on some of that stuff, but for us, we just want to make sure that we're finding homeowners that are going to be able to pay their mortgage, pay their lot rent, and afford to live there and take care of their home. I mean, somebody might have the down payment and enough to cover the lot rent, but if they can't cover the mortgage, they can't cover the utilities or maintain the home, now you're going to have a problem later.
I would expect it to be an extremely qualified rental base, like tenant base, because they treat it like it's their home because it is their home, right? But then as the owner, it's like you have an apartment, but you don't have to worry about the maintenance as much as you do with apartments, And you have a much more loyal tenant base and a much more committed tenant base, and
our turnover is very low.
That's what I was going to say.
Very low.
And turnover is typically the largest expense in owning multifamily.
Yeah.
Or any rental real estate, really. But if you can minimize that, dude, your gains, your total net income, long-term returns, dude, it's got to be pretty substantial.
Let me ask you this: what's your average turnover? What's apartment industry-wide? What's the average turnover time of a tenant? Year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, I would say probably in that. I mean, it really depends on the market that you're in and the building that you have and everything. But I would say on average, it's somewhere in that 15 to 21 month range.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean.
So about a year and a half, let's call it.
Which is, that sounds about right. So when a tenant, I'm just kind of trying to draw the comparison of how it differs from apartments. You know, when somebody moves out of an apartment, you clean it out, you make it ready for rent again, right? And there's costs involved in that, and then you put it up for rent. For us, most of the time when somebody moves out, it's just an application for the new person to move in. We approve it or deny it. If they approve it, they buy it from that homeowner, and we never miss a month of rent.
Do you guys kind of like broker it? Is there a listing place where these people who are moving out of the community can list their mobile home in order to sell it to somebody else?
Yeah, you can list it on like Mobile Home Village, MH Village, a lot of Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace is probably the most common, but there are some brokers that focus on just mobile home sales. Not too many, but more the larger Florida, Arizona, the markets that are big into mobile homes. But yeah, we don't have that turnover cost. And when we do have the turnover cost, it's because we took the home back through eviction, which then we talked about. We get the home, which is pretty darn good collateral that we can sell. And even if we lost a couple months rent fixing it up and whatever, getting the title, we can usually recoup that and make a profit.
I love it, man.
Yeah, so it's kind of a unique model.
So the goal is I mean, you said as many mobile homes as you possibly can, right?
Well,
as many lots as you can.
I mean, we want to pick up.
Is there a specific number that you want to be at?
So essentially 12 communities with 50 plus occupied lots this year. So whatever that adds up to on a per lot
600?
basis. Yeah.
So
it'd be a big jump. It'd be a really big jump for us because we're at 800 now, but it's taken a little while to build the team.
Is that a sweet spot that it's kind of smaller than the institutional investors, but bigger than some of the smaller investors?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, for us, the sweet spot is 50 to 150 because the little guys aren't going after a couple $1 million assets, and the big guys aren't going after the 150. Yeah, some of them are, but they're definitely it's definitely a sweet spot.
Give me a quick metric on how do I know if it's a good mobile home deal or not? Right? Is it kind of like the 1% rule in multifamily? Like if it rents for $300 a month in lot rent, and I can buy it for $30,000 per pad, is that a good deal?
So typically what I do, the way I quick eval, a community on a napkin basically, is I take the total lot, the lot rent that an average home or lot generates, okay, times the total number of occupied lots, times 12, which gives me my gross revenue, and then I multiply that by, call it 0.6 or 0.62, whatever, to give me that expense ratio. And that's going to tell me roughly where I'm at on a cap rate. I can quickly
on an
gauge.
NOI, and then you're dividing by...
Yeah, that gives me the NOI.
And then are you dividing by cap rate depending on the market,
so I'll
right?
just for the purposes of the viewers, I'll quickly run through that again. So you take the total lot rent that the average home is generating.
100 lots at $400 a month.
400 times 12.
$40,000
gross revenue.
Is $40,000 a month, so it's $480 a year.
Yep, times 0.6, let's say.
Yep, so
If you can do that in your head, I'm impressed.
Oh man. 480 times 0.6 equals 288.
Cool. That gives you your NOI, and then you would divide that by either a market cap rate, or if you want to, if you've got the ask price for the community, you would just divide that by the ask price, and that's going to give you what their asking cap rate is.
Right.
So that's quickly how we figure out if it makes sense or not. I mean, we don't typically do like a gross rent multiplier or anything.
But you're doing kind of like it's kind of like the Burr method, though, right? Kind of like what we do on apartments.
Exactly what you do on apartments.
And then
buy it, stabilize it, refi it.
So what does that delta need to look like? So if it's 288 and something, is it similar to what we're? I mean, it's exactly what we're doing. So if it appraises at a 6% cap rate,
sure,
right, you would need to buy it at an 8 cap, right?
Correct, yep.
Or
it's exactly what you're doing from a spread standpoint.
And you're always looking at the improved lot rate rent.
Yes.
Not what it's currently bringing in, what it could bring in.
I'm going to look at it both ways. I'm going to look at it day one if I'm trying to figure out what it is, a takeover. But yes, I'm definitely looking at the stabilized rents and where it's going, so I can tell where.
The difference is how long does it take it to get it to that stabilized rental rate? And if it's a year or 2 years, you just need to build in kind of like the carrying costs or
totally.
Whatever those holding kind of costs would be, assuming that it's not bringing that in. Yeah, in order to transition that out.
Well, keep in mind too, apartments you can just expire the lease, right, and bring somebody else in at the higher rent. It doesn't really work like that with mobile homes. So you're not going to say, hey, today you can't have your home here. They own their home. So for us, it's a little bit more gradual. It doesn't mean that we haven't had to do some aggressive hikes to get closer to market faster, but you can't just expire the lease and bring somebody in at full market if you had to. It's a little bit slower.
Well, if it's on a month to month, why couldn't you do that?
State law.
State law?
Yeah, you can't. I should say there's some states that you can just you can expire the lease, but there's some laws there.
Well, the
that
lease is in
protect it.
place, right? If it's
Correct.
on month to month, though, you can just give them a 30-day notice and say, hey, we're bumping up your lot rent.
So each state has different laws. Like Florida, for example, you can only raise the rent once a year. Okay, and you got to give 90 days notice, just like apartments. I'm sure you have to give some sort of notice period, but we can't just expire the lease and say you have to pull your home out by next week, or like you would an apartment where you say, hey, your lease is up, get out. But we can raise the rents with a certain level of notice on that home.
Got it. I was just doing some math on what you typically buy at. I divided by a 6% cap rate, and then I divided by 100 units because that's what we were going at.
Sure.
And it's essentially $48,000 per door is
Correct.
the stabilized value on something like that. So you're trying to buy it somewhere in the 35 to 40
Definitely.
a door range?
Yeah, I mean, we don't
pad, I'm sorry.
We use the per pad, similar to probably how you look at per unit. We use it as a gauge, is where does it compare in the market, but we're typically looking at it from a cash flow standpoint to really dive deep and underwrite it.
Love it, man. And then are there, I'm always looking at amenities to add. You hit on this a little bit earlier, but like, I don't know, a dog park. If you put in a dog park, do you guys charge more if they have a dog? Because you don't really own the dwelling.
Do.
So I don't know if you can.
We do at some, we don't at others. We also, at some communities, are able to charge extra person fees, believe it or not, and some we can't, just depending on state law. There's some regulatory issues in certain states with mobile home parks that you don't have with apartments because they actually own it, and they're trying to protect, especially like Florida, they're trying to protect the elderly people and things like that. But yeah, so we can have dog parks. We don't have any dog parks, but we do have some playgrounds and things like that.
Yeah. Or putting up signage or storage on
we have some storage. Yep, we got laundry.
So can you, is that something, if you have some extra space in the back of the mobile home park, get it zoned for that and kind of get a variance in? Yeah,
actually one of the easiest ones that we did was we had this strip at the back of one of our communities that we're like, well, crap, that's too small to put any structures, but how can we generate some income? So what we did is we went out and bought posts and we numbered them. And because it was a pretty dense community, there wasn't a lot of parking. We rented it as overflow parking.
I love
so,
it.
$40 a month they can park their car. And all it cost us was the wood post and we had to put up some cameras.
That's so good.
So I mean, it's super inexpensive to do, but it was.
You didn't put any asphalt in, right?
No, it's grass. Grass. And we've talked about bringing in rocks or whatever, and we just never have because people want it and it works. So certain communities are going to demand certain things, but a lot of what you would see in apartments, you would maybe see in our communities. Yeah.
No, I think it's a really unique
low
space.
Maintenance, low cost. Yep.
And then where do you see that space, that asset class going over the next 5 to 10 years?
What's interesting about mobile home parks is they're consolidating. That whole industry is in consolidation.
Oh, you could see, man. There's a lot more buyers with more units, right?
Totally.
Instead of because it used to be like a big mom and pop type of ownership structure.
So you've got, historically it's just been mom and pop. They've had one, maybe two parks. Now you've got professional operators coming in with systems and with, industry best practices, and they're buying up these communities from people who are mostly the greatest generation or some baby boomers, and they're getting ready to retire. So they're exiting right now. And so as that happens, you're going to see more and more communities get cleaned up, which is going to improve the overall confidence in that asset class for investors. Again, cap rates compress. They're a nicer asset than what they were, and I think we've got I don't know how long, but maybe 5 to 7 years before you really see mostly professional operators owning them. It's happening that fast. So, there's kind of a window of opportunity to still be able to buy from the people who have left a lot of room for value add. And I think as that happens, cap rates will continue to compress. There will be less and less, I don't want to say opportunity, but less and less value add. So like right now, you can buy things that the seller, doesn't really care about cap rate. They care about getting X dollars because they want to retire, and that's it. They're not looking at it from an investment standpoint or an ROI. They're just like, cool, $2 million I can retire. And you're like, $2 million, that's a pretty good cap rate. But and they've left a lot of opportunity to clean it up.
I love it, man.
Bump rents, and a lot of these people had friends in the community, so they didn't want to raise the rents, because a lot of the owners actually lived in the communities with their tenants, which is kind of wild. But so they kept the rents low because they didn't want to piss them off. And so now we come in and we go, hey, we're going to fix it up, but we're going to bring you to market.
Yep. Dude, this has been super insightful, man. I appreciate that. I'm excited for the course. And then what's the coaching stuff that you're doing? Yeah,
so we've got MHP Tribe with, I'm partners with Ekaterina Stefanova and Paul Stout. We partnered up.
And they're coming in town tomorrow?
Yep, they're going to be here tonight and tomorrow. We're going to do the filming on Sunday with Cam, and pretty excited about that. But we also have a mastermind behind that, which is basically people that are investing in mobile home parks coming together and brainstorming. You know what a mastermind is, which I want to tell you, I love legacy family. I mean, I've been in it for over a year now. I was looking for a good mastermind to join. I was pretty selective, and came highly recommended. That's how I found you, and it's been an excellent group to work with. You've really put together an awesome team of people, both that you bring in to add value and educate, but also you've got an awesome group of people in the mastermind to network with.
We got a really special group,
I really like it, so I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate what you do, and you've put together a really awesome group.
Thanks, man. No, I'm excited, and it's awesome seeing, your portfolio grow, seeing your influence grow. Now you're paying it forward, helping a lot of other people, and that creates a lot of more collaboration. Like it's going to allow you to get into more deals. It's going to allow other people that couldn't get into deals now by partnering with you. They're not going to lose time. They're not going to lose money. They're going to expedite their wealth growth. And it's just, it's a cool way to kind of pay it forward and help other people. So
yeah, I'm excited. What is the new platform called again?
Legacy Wealth Academy.
Yep, I'm excited that we're able to be a part of that. So thank you, because I think we're going to be able to add a lot of value to your members there.
Oh, for sure, man. Well, dude, I'm excited. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Proud of you, man. And it's just I can't imagine where we're all going to be in 2, 3, 5 more years.
Mind blowing. You've put all these great minds together.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Tons of value from Mario. If you're not connected with him, make sure you are on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. Hit him up. I think he's got a YouTube channel. We'll link to everything in the show notes here, but make sure you're connected with him, especially if you want more information on mobile home investing. He's got an awesome course, an awesome group that he coaches, and always leading with value. So great guy to connect with. And if you got a lot of value from this episode, please like it, please comment, give me your biggest takeaway in the comments below, share it with some other folks who you think would get some value out of it. And then we'll see you at the next Spill the Beans. Thanks for being here.